Next topic is Hadoop Sqoop. So we'll learn what is and why we want to use a Sqoop. And basically, Sqoop is a technology that you can import and export data from HDFS to relational database. Okay, so we're going to see how we can import data into Hadoop HDFS. We can also import data into Hadoop Hive and HBase. And we can also see how we can export data to relational database. And then we are going to see, so this one I don't have, in fact, hands-on lab, so I should actually add it later on. You can import and export data to NoSQL database, such as MongoDB. So in many cases, let's talk about what is and why Hadoop Sqoop. Okay, so in many cases, many organizations have the relational database, and and then they also have a Hadoop, right? So sometimes they perform Hadoop operation, and the output they want to import into relational database so that they can actually use existing relational database tools for further analysis. Okay. So what is Hadoop Sqoop? So it's a tool designed to transfer data between Hadoop and external database. So external database could be relational database or NoSQL. And RDBMS, relational database, could be any database with a JDBC access, meaning there are hundreds of relational database, but the major ones are MySQL, SQL Server, and Oracle DB. Yeah, so in this hands-on lab exercise, you have to actually install MySQL, so that is the external database that we are going to actually deal with. Okay, so that's the actually first lab exercise we are going to do. The install MySQL, and then we'll move forward. And data can be imported from or exported to external database system. So the file system in Hadoop can be HDFS, or I should say file rather than title. Here, slide 4. Let me just write it down so that I can fix it. Or it could be Hive table, or it could be HBase table. You can also use Sqoop in the workflow of Oozie. Yeah, we're gonna actually talk about Oozie later on. In the many cases, so Oozie is actually interesting technology. In many cases, you want to actually perform a certain thing, certain jobs in a flow, right? For example, once your MapReduce job is done, or once you perform some pig operation, there is some output, and then you want to import that output into relational database. Okay, and so you want to actually have these jobs, pick jobs and scoop jobs in a sequence, right? So that's the way you can use a Oozie. You can have this flow of jobs to be done in sequence. Okay, so it's very common to use a Sqoop as actually part of the this workflow written in Oozie, so that the end result of Hadoop operation can be imported to a relational database or vice versa. Okay. All right, so exercise 0 is first we are going to install and start MySQL. So Sqoop. Installation of MySQL is pretty straightforward. All you have to do is go to any directory of your choice. You say sudo yum. Yum is the installation tool for this central OS, the Linux, and install, and you say MySQL-server. Then it will download and install MySQL. Okay. And once installation is done, you should be able to say, you should be able to see the files that are installed. So you should actually install MySQL on the user bean. So in my case, if I say ls user bean, so I should say user bean MySQL. Then you should see a bunch of MySQL files are installed. Okay. And the two files that we are going to use in this lab is MySQL dsafe. So this is MySQL D database server. So we're going to actually run this guy to start the MySQL database server. And MySQL, this is the client. Okay, so we are going to access MySQL database server using MySQL client. Okay. By the way, as a default, the user ID is root and there is no password. Okay, so that's the default. All right, so we are going to start once you've done, you can actually start MySQL server. So you can actually go to user bin. So you can say user, you go to user bin, and let me start the MySQL sudo MySQL d safe. Okay, so MySQL database server is up and running, and then I can access this MySQL. Again, I'm going to go user bin, and I'm going to say MySQL. This is a client. Okay, so right now, because there is no password, it just let me get in right away. Okay, so here I should be able to say show databases. So there is no so there are two databases. Yeah, actually I studied as actually Cloudera user in the hands-on lab. I'm studying as a sudo, the super user. That's the reason it's actually seeing another database called the MySQL. Okay, but it doesn't matter. You can actually start with the super user, or you can start it as the Cloudera user. Okay, and then we are going to create database. So let's create and database and test DB. Access denied. Okay, so it looks like I already have it. Okay, let me see if I can create the test. Yeah, so yeah, this is already created a super user. I'm gonna just restart the as a sudo my SQL and show tables. Oops. Oh yeah, I have to actually select show databases. I should say databases. Okay, so right now I have already created testDB. So in order to use your database, you have to use command in MySQL. So you say use testDB. Okay, so from this point on, any the database operations I'm doing in this shell will be against this testDB. So I can say show tables. Okay, so I have in fact two tables that I actually created, right? So I'm gonna just drop these two guys. Drop table student and drop table employees. Okay, so now if I say show tables, there should be none. So I should actually proceed later on. And you can, you can create and populate tables in the MySQL database. Okay, so the student SQL is created, is provided on the samples SQL. Okay, so if you take a look at the, if you take a look at the students SQL, you can just I'm gonna do it here. Oh, I'm gonna just open another terminal here. Okay, so I'm creating students table with a student ID, first name, last name, age, and grade. And the primary key is the student ID. And then I'm populating the students table with the Yuna Kim, Kelly Jones, and Jack Kennedy and things like that. Okay, so we are going to execute the students SQL. So basically, we are creating students table as well as populating the table. So inside the MySQL. Where is my SQL? Yeah, here we go. So I'm going to use that SQL script. So I'm going to just copy this guy and execute it. Now I should have a table. So if I say show tables, I should have a student. So if I say perform select from students table, I should see the 6 people. Okay. And you also want to create the employees table as well. So we are going to again use employees.sql. Okay, so now I should have employees table. So I'm going to just query performance, and I should have this 6 people as employees as well. Okay. Okay, so yeah, so that's it. I'll give you guys about the 12. I'll give you about 15 minutes since you probably have to download MySQL and all that stuff. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about how Sqoop works. So Sqoop runs on Hadoop cluster. So when data is being imported, Sqoop uses the mappers to slide incoming data, and so underneath it's actually using mapper, and it's actually mapper only job. It's not doing a reducing things, because it just have to just chop the data to, so map only job is launched with individual mappers responsible for transferring slices of the data. Okay. Sqoop command. So you can say sqoop help, and you can see there are few available commands. And the ones we are going to use are import and what is the export? Yeah, import and export. Yeah, so export is the fifth command, fourth command, and import is the sixth command. Okay, so mostly we are going to use import and export. In MySQL, you can list databases. I'm sorry, so here you can use the sqoop list databases command to list databases in your MySQL. Okay. So in this case, it actually talks to MySQL database server, and it figures out there are 4 databases. Okay. All right, so let's move on to import data into Hadoop HDFS. So here we are going to import from relational database, in this case MySQL, to Hadoop HDFS. So the command is this. This is for importing data into HDFS. Okay, so you say sqoop, and then you say import, and then you have to specify this connect URL. Okay, so -- connect and JDBC :mysql : localhost and testdb. So if you're using different database, this URL could be different. And username is root. And I don't specify password here because I don't have a password. But if you are using CDH5, the password is Cloudera. So you should say -- password Cloudera. And the name of the students that we are importing from relational database, MySQL, is the students. And the target is, so you say target HDFS directory using target dir attribute here. And the target dir is my data and imported students. So that's the command that you are going to use. Okay. So once imported is done, you actually you are going to see these multiple files under imported students directory. Okay. Because again, it's using mapper. Mapper is going to chop the data into multiple files. Okay, so that's the reason we have in fact 4 files under the directory. So if you take a look at the contents, in fact you will see the portion of the students, the database table. Okay, all right, so that's exercise 1. So let's take a look at exercise 1 here. So here we can take a look at the sqoop help. Again, we are going to use import and export, and we also do list databases and list tables. Okay. All right. So you say import. Yeah. So you can take a look at the help on import, sqoop import. Okay. So important thing is connect and JDBC URL. Okay. And there are a few other options. Okay. So if you want to see more information about the on export, you can say sqoop export help. Okay. And now we can display. So I can actually run this command to find all the databases. Okay. So it's going to talk to my MySQL database server. It should display this 4 databases, the information schema, and the MySQL test and testdb. Okay, and the one that we are using is testdb. Okay, and import table from MySQL to HDBS. So if you take a look at user Cloudera My Data, it doesn't have imported students table yet. Okay. Okay. So now if you perform import students, okay. All right. So once that is done, if you refresh the page, we now should see imported students. So if you click this guy, you see in fact it has 4 files. Okay, so let me see. I think I already have done that. Yeah, so my data imported students. Let me see whether I still have that. User Cloudera, my data import. Yeah, so it looks like this is some I've done before. So if you take a look at the contents, it has 2 people, and the next one is 1 person, and the next one has 1 person, and things like that. So even though it's a small file, it is chopped into multiple pieces. And so that is what we have done. Okay, so I'm going to finish up the presentation, then I'll give you a big chunk of time. Okay, so let me just continue. So that's importing data into HDFS. Okay, now let's see how we can import data into either Hive or HBase. So here, importing data into Hive. So instead of the target dir, we are going to say -- Hive import, and then we specify the columns, first name and last name age, meaning these are the columns from MySQL database table that I like to import. So you can actually pick and choose columns in MySQL database table. Okay. And the fields terminated by comma. So the Hive table will be So that is Okay. So once we have done that, and again, you can actually now take a look at the user Hive warehouse, and again, you should be able to see. Oops, you should be able to see the contents. Okay. That is exercise 2. That's importing again to Hive. The last one is we are going to export. Again, you can export data from Hive or HBase or HDFS itself to relational database. So here we're going to actually just work with exporting data from HDFS. Okay. So first of all, you have to create the table first with a proper schema in your MySQL database. So it's not going to actually create the table for you. Okay, so you have to create a table first, and then you can export. So here you are going to say scoop export, and then you specify connect JDBC URL, username and password, and export dir. Okay, so this is the directory from HDFS. So I'm actually exporting output / limited part 00000. This is something that we have created yesterday or the day before yesterday. And the name of the table I'm creating is, name of the table that I'm actually exporting that is my table. So my table has to be created before. And then input fields terminated by colon. Okay, meaning the data that we are going to, in this case, HDFS data file, it is actually being terminated by colon, the fields. Okay, so that is exercise 3. So let's take a look at exercise 3 first. So we are going to choose data in HDFS in exporting MySQL. So you probably have output limited. This is something that we have done. This is actually the output that we have generated, and the I think is MapReduce or pick one of those. Okay, so you should have this data. So you can just choose any since we actually have to create a data reflecting this data. Okay. So you might as well just use this output data. So that's the one that we want to export to MySQL. So before you export your data to MySQL, you have to create the table. So I provided create my table.sql. Okay, so that if you take a look at the Hadoop Sqoop and sample. So yeah, so create my table SQL. So if you take a look at the create my table SQL, basically creating a table with the two fields, count and word. Okay, so that's the one that we want to import. So this is the count and this is the word. Okay, so we have so at this point, I have that table, but I don't have any data yet. Okay, so now once we export it, okay, then then we should be able to perform select operation, and it should actually display this. Okay. All right. So let me finish up the last part. Let's see. Importing and exporting data from and to NoSQL, such as MongoDB. So Sqoop connectors are software components used to transfer data between Hadoop systems and external database or enterprise data warehouse. So basically, it's a matter of getting a Sqoop connector. So there is in fact the JDBC, generic JDBC connector used to connect any database that is accessible with the JDBC. And there are also a set of JDBC connectors optimized for each of these databases. So MySQL, PostgreSQL, SQL Server, Oracle DB, and DB2. And the FastPath connector, special connector designed for high throughput for specific databases such as MySQL and PostgreSQL. So this is actually high performance, the connector. So it looks like different types of connectors are provided. Okay. Connecting to MongoDB. So basically, you just have to have a MongoDB connector. Okay, so you can get that from that website, and so MongoDB is one of the most popular NoSQL, the database. So batch aggregation, data warehouse, and ETL data. So a lot of applications are using MongoDB as their NoSQL database. So importing and exporting to MongoDB could be actually useful. All right, so that is the end of the presentation. So let me just finish this up.